Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely shatter the delicate, decorative illusion of the common pet store betta fish. I mean, when you walk into a pet shop and see those tiny, pristine plastic cups holding fish with those long, flowing, brightly colored fins, you probably think they're just beautiful, fragile little ornaments, right? Well, the reality of their existence is completely different, and honestly, infinitely more fascinating. We are about to uncover the true story of a rugged, mud-dwelling survivor that literally fought its way to the top.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why is this beautiful fish named after ancient warriors? It turns out the word betta doesn't mean beautiful, delicate, or pretty. It actually comes from an ancient Malay warrior tribe. And that's because, for the vast majority of human history, their true defining trait hasn't been their aesthetic beauty at all. It's been their unparalleled violence and absolute refusal to ever back down from a fight.
Section 1. Beautiful but deadly fighters. To really understand who they are, you have to know their scientific name, Betta splendens, which literally translates to sparkling fighter. That name perfectly subverts our modern expectations. Beneath those flowing, dress-like fins that make them look like, underwater ballroom dancers, they're actually ruthless predators. They are strict carnivores. In their natural habitat, they don't gracefully nibble on plant matter, they hunt. Their absolute baseline, bottom-line food source is mosquito larvae, which they gorge on, but they'll aggressively eat absolutely any invertebrate they can physically fit into their mouths.
Section 2. Extreme mud survival skills.
So how did they get this way? Well, we have to travel away from our pristine living room tanks to their brutal, wild origins in Southeast Asia. The wild betta lives in incredibly harsh environments. We're talking about shallow, stagnant water, muddy rice paddies, agricultural ditches, and literal puddles along the road. Sometimes they even live in the tiny bit of water pooled at the base of palm trees. Because Southeast Asia gets incredibly hot, these shallow puddles are often baked by the sun, leading to a severely low oxygen supply. Worse yet, as the water dries up, their territories shrink rapidly. This incredibly stressful environment is exactly what forged their hyper-aggressive nature. When your home is a shrinking puddle, you fight everything that moves just to survive. This is exactly why males will flare up and attack anything, even their own reflection in a mirror.
Now, navigating these muddy, sun-baked puddles isn't easy. Because the water is often totally murky, with zero visibility, the betta developed a highly specialized tool. Their long, extended pelvic fins act almost exactly like a blind man's cane. They use these extended fins as sensory organs to probe the dark, muddy waters, helping them navigate around debris and hunt down their prey when they literally cannot see in front of their own faces. And this brilliantly illustrates their ultimate survival hack, the labyrinth organ. Because the hot, stagnant mud puddles they live in often have little to no dissolved oxygen, regular fish would quickly suffocate. But the betta is part of a specialized family of fish that developed a highly complex, folded respiratory organ right above their gills. It looks like an intricate maze, hence the name labyrinth. This incredible organ allows them to swim right to the surface and gulp atmospheric air directly.
Because of this biological superpower, we arrive at this incredibly bizarre biological irony. Over thousands of years of evolution, because they rely so heavily on their labyrinth organ to breathe air from the surface, their actual underwater gills have weakened. This means that even if you put a betta in a perfectly clean, highly oxygenated tank, if you somehow prevent it from reaching the surface to take a gulp of air, it will eventually drown. A fish that can drown in water. Just let that sink in.
Section 3. The Bubble Nest Romance.
Given their harsh environment and violent tempers, you might expect their mating process to be brutal, but it actually starts with visual cues. In the wild, betta fish exhibit intense sexual dimorphism. The males are the ones with the slightly larger fins and the ability to flash vibrant colors when they're trying to show off or fight. The females, on the other hand, are incredibly dull and ordinary-looking to help them blend right into the mud. But when a female is ready to mate, she physically changes, developing prominent stripes across her body. These visual signals are what kick off the entire mating process.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer biological choreography required here. First, the male builds a nest out of nothing but air bubbles coated in his own mucus, floated right at the water's surface. When the female approaches and approves, they lock into a tight, almost knot-like embrace. This actually puts both fish into a temporary trance-like paralysis. As the female releases her eggs, they begin to sink,
The male snaps out of his trance first, darts down, and catches the falling eggs in his mouth before they hit the muddy bottom. Then, he carefully swims up and spits the eggs into his floating bubble nest. They repeat this trance-like dance over and over until hundreds of eggs are safely tucked away. But the romance ends right there. The very second the mating is over, a violent betrayal occurs. The male snaps back into his ruthless, territorial mindset. If the female sticks around, she might eat the eggs to regain her lost energy. To prevent this, the male fiercely and violently attacks her, banishing her from the nest entirely. At this exact moment, the fierce warrior becomes a fiercely dedicated single father. For the next 24 to 36 hours, the male won't eat, won't sleep, and will not rest. He spends this entire period constantly repairing the bubble nest and aggressively guarding the eggs. If an egg slips and falls, he darts down, catches it in his mouth, and spits it back up. He does this non-stop until the eggs hatch and the tiny fry absorb their yolk sacs enough to swim on their own. Section 4. Gladiators to Beauty Queens. So, how did this mud-dwelling warrior get to our living rooms? Well, humans stepped in and totally altered their evolutionary trajectory. Looking at the timeline, local farmers in Asia started catching these fish roughly 1,000 years ago. In their downtime, they would put two males together and gamble on the outcome, much like cockfighting or cricket fighting. By the 19th century, the sport was so incredibly popular that the king of Thailand, King Rama III, actually started taxing it. He eventually gifted some of these prized fighters to a Danish zoologist, which introduced them to Europe. But the Europeans didn't want them for fighting. They saw those flashes of color and decided to breed them strictly to be beautiful, ornamental centerpieces. So the crucial point is humans selectively bred them to be far more violent and then far more beautiful than nature ever intended. In the wild, two male bettas will fight for maybe a few minutes before the weaker one simply swims away to another puddle. But through hundreds of years of selective human breeding for underground gambling rings, domesticated bettas became hyper-aggressive gladiators. Put two domestic males together and they won't retreat. They will fight to the death, sometimes for hours on end. Today, this massive gap in behavior between wild and domesticated bettas is actually highly valued by modern science. Researchers believe that by comparing their genomes, they can pinpoint the exact genes responsible for extreme aggression. Understanding how these traits were bred into the betta could potentially unlock secrets surrounding animal behavior and maybe even offer insights into treating human mental health disorders. Pretty incredible stuff.
Section 5. Thailand's National Aquatic Treasure.
This brings us to the final chapter of their incredible rags-to-riches journey. Because they've been so heavily bred for their looks over the last century, some breeders achieve absolutely unbelievable results. Recently, a single betta fish was selectively bred to perfectly display the red, white, and blue stripes of the Thai flag. This tiny, beautiful warrior sold at auction for a staggering $1,500. Let's move to Yozoit and see how this builds to their ultimate coronation. In 2019, recognizing their deep historical roots, their unique biological resilience, and their massive global popularity, Thailand officially declared the betta fish as their national aquatic animal. It's an incredibly inspiring story. The little drab fish that used to fight for its life in muddy footprints has literally become a revered national symbol. So the next time you see one of these fish swimming gracefully in a little glass bowl, remember, you aren't looking at a delicate decoration. You're looking at a brilliant, labyrinth-breathing, mud-surviving gladiator in a fancy dress. It really makes you wonder, what other fierce, ancient warriors are swimming in plain sight right under our noses in our living rooms? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you on the next one.